crazy busy year, and now I am planning a little road trip out to Ohio from New Jersey, pulling a trailer. And before I do that, I am installing this Riff Raff FRx kit here on this 7.3 Powerstroke. So I wanted to bring you along for the journey, show you how that install goes, and then give you a little review on what it does for the fuel economy. Can't really base it with the trailer, but I'm not going to bring the trailer back, so I'll have a good reading, because truck gets pretty good fuel economy. From what I've read about this, is it will help the fuel economy. The big thing on this is that the fuel system is pressurized, goes through your fuel bowl. There's a regulator spring that keeps it at a set point, but it only keeps the fuel rail pressurized one way. So what happens is air can get in there, and air in fuel on diesels is not a good thing. And I'll give you smoke, and that will hurt the longevity of the injectors. So what this does is it goes to the front side, on the passenger side, and the back side of the cylinder head in the fuel system, to allow that fuel system to the injectors to stay pressurized, but it also lets it return back to the fuel bowl, so it doesn't what is called deadhead. It won't deadhead anymore with this installed. So take a watch, goosey gander, and I'm gonna get this put in. It's a little dark. I had a light go out in the shop, but I'll get some light under here so you can see everything going on, and hopefully put this in for yourself. Swell. So let's take a look, see what comes in the kit. I'm gonna open it with a knife and be careful because there's some O-rings here. You get an O-ring where the regulator is, and a fuel line. I don't know what you call a grommet or something or other. I forget the technical name. That goes on the fuel line and squishes in between the line that hooks up to this device and creates the seal so fuel doesn't leak. And there's some old all over geese. It comes with three different springs depending on what fuel pressure you want. I gotta look at the instructions. I know I'm gonna go with the highest. Ford's usually around 50 to 60 psi. International recommends 72 psi. I gotta check what all three springs say in their instructions, which are on the interwebs. I gotta download. I'm gonna go up with the highest because I have a TS6 programmer in this, and what I've been noticing is sometimes I fall flat on my face at higher RPM, so I'm hoping this FRx remedies that. You get two longer bolts here for this piece because it goes in between the fuel bowl and the Freshle fuel pressure regulator. What the hell's a Freshle? It's a good one. So those are longer bolts, and then I've got some thread sealant for the fittings that go into the cylinder head. Cool. With PTFE. And then the creme de la creme, the piece we're looking to install, and I cut the wrong section. There you go. Sunshine and diesel performance. So here's the main piece. This goes in between the fuel pressure regulator, sticking up that way, going that way. You've got these two locating pins. This comes up so you don't hit your HPUP lines. And then the short one goes to the passenger side, and this one goes back by the turbo. These fittings have to get installed to where there's plugs in the head. So we will go ahead and get started on that. Lovely. So here's what we use for this project that I just did, but now I can tell you what I used. I had a 3/8 impact with a 1/2 inch deep, take off the top bracket. I had a various 1/4 inch extensions. I had a 5/8 wrench that I used as a pry bar, 13 millimeter wrench for the bolts for the fuel filter housing. This was a breaker bar wrench that I had to use to break those bolts loose. I had a long 3/8 ratchet with a swivel head. Didn't use too much, 13 millimeter semi-shallow on a 1/4 inch to get the fittings in. 3/8 extension, 1/2 inch wrench for tightening the fitting on the passenger side into the head, 9/16 wrench for tightening the JSC fitting, 13mm ratchet wrench for those fuel filter housing bolts, 90-degree pick. Use that to get the old fuel line seal out. This 45-degree pick, if you don't have one, get one, because this saved me to help me get that fitting in on the passenger side. So I was dreading. 10mm wrench for a lot of stuff. 10mm socket, 1/4-inch drive, little pry bar. T25, that's important to get your bolts out for the fuel pressure regulator on a 1/4-inch extension, short one, 3/8 knuckle. So that's about everything you're gonna use as you get into this that I just used. Again, this was a lifesaver for getting that one fitting in on the passenger side, 45-degree pick. Other than that, I had this 8mm swivel socket for the hose clamps, but you can use flathead screwdriver. And if you do have one, 5/16 pipe plug socket to get those old plugs out. Watch the video, you'll see all the things you need to do to get to them. So, I hope this video was a little more thorough than other ones you might have seen, and you kind of know what you're getting into. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and all that stuff. On Instagram, same name, BrianBuilt360. Check it out, follow me. I put all sorts of random BS I do all day, every day on there, and memes. Memes keep me alive. See you there. First we're gonna drain the fuel out. And it's sad, I know exactly where the pan needs to go to do this, but you got a fuel bowl drain on the back of the fuel filter housing. It's that yellow lever. If it's been replaced, they can be black. The Dorman one is. So you open that up. Gurgle, gurgle. Let that drain out. See, I've done this way too many times. So that's your first step. Correction, your first step is going to be removing the black plastic piece that I don't have here because I don't know where the hell I put it in between one of many projects on here. So you take your black plastic piece off. I am going to take the bracket off as well, just to make a little more room for this, because we got to get down in some sketchy spots on the head. Can you even see the bolt? Little square head there underneath the wire loom is where we're trying to get. I'm gonna start by taking out the top metal bracket. And that'll make a little room. And then I'm going to take off the fuel line, which is a 5/8. If you have a line wrench, use one. If you're not afraid, be like me. Good seal. Now I'm gonna take out the fuel pressure regulator right here. That's done with a Torx 25. I've got this on a socket and a little extension here. So I'm gonna get in there. My regulator looks new. It is new. If you watched my injector video, one thing I didn't figure out at that time why I blew an injector up was my regulator was stuck closed, so I had 95 psi of fuel pressure, and I think that is what destroyed the regulator. I'm sorry, the injector. So I got a new one I put in from Ford. So side note, this has a spring behind it, so you want to be careful and take the screws out at an even rate, because if you do one and then the other, you potentially can blow the spring out the side or strip the threads out of the housing. So just take your time with it and take the bolts out a little bit at a time, and it'll slowly walk it out. I'll walk it out and take pressure off the spring. This one's a little crooked. I don't know what that beeping noise is. So I've got the screws out. I'm gonna push on that. Move the line out of the way. All right, you can see the spring in there. So just be careful. You get your piece out. And then I take my spring out. I'm going to take the O-ring out. There is a little valve in there, which is what that spring with the fuel pump creates the pressure in there, and then that spring's what stops and raises the fuel pressure. So just in case, I'm going to take that little piece out right now because I don't want it to fall out down in the valley. It's not magnetic. So I'm reading now. We just did step number 4, took out the OEM fuel pressure regulator, and now we're at step number 5. And choose which spring you want to install. So silver, 58 to 61 psi, gold, 62 to 65 psi, and black is 67 to 70 psi. So I'm going to go with the black one just because from what I've been reading, International recommends 70 psi, and I know they use this in other demanding, and it might have a tune with more horsepower on a harvester or a truck. Since I have a TS6 programmer, the dial for the different settings, I have different tunes. So I want to have more horsepower. So I'm going to go with the black spring in this case and get that piece installed. So I'm going to put in the black spring and the new housing. I got to get this old fuel line seal out. I'm using a 90-degree hose pick. Usually it can pick right into that seal and then back that off. Yep. So see how that got a little boogered up. Yep. So luckily the kit comes with a new one. So I need to get that off the fuel line, which seems pliable enough. Okay, get that off. Squishy squish. Grab my new one. Pop that over. Okay. So that new seal is on there. Magnificent. Now I'm going to get the plunger we took out before. I'm going to put that back in carefully. Right. I'm going to put my black spring. Okay. Get my O-ring on there. The new O-ring that comes to seal that. Where's my hand? There it is. So I'll get that O-ring. Put that on. Being careful. I don't want to drop it. Alright, never mind. That O-ring goes on the housing. Right in there. I'm going to put the O-ring there. What a dope. Got these 2 locating pins when that presses in. Right, so go ahead, wedge my wrench, fuel line there. Bastard. Is that PG? Okay. Careful that gets in the center there too when we do this. Feed it up there. Look for those holes. Needs to line up. Okay. I'm gonna get those new bolts that came with the kit. Lovely. Started that one in by hand. That one somehow hitting the other line. Wow. You know what you're gonna run into. It's my first time doing this. That line, cool. And I got that. Started there. Okay, that one's in all the way. That one is in all the way. We'll tighten those down. Now, I don't see a torque spec, but you don't want to go too tight to where you strip it. Get the point. Got to get that fuel line centered, so I'm going to try. Yark. So I was just trying to get that fuel line onto the block that we just installed, and I'm having a hard time. So at this point of the instructions, it asked me to loosen the bolts for the fuel filter housing. So those bolts can be found on the front of the H-pop reservoir. It's that one there and that one there. The instructions say I don't have to remove the bolts completely, so I'm going to try, well, hello, and not take out the exhaust back pressure sensor. I might unplug it. Come out. There we go. Make a little extra room. I actually needed to do that to get to the plug down there. Yikes. But I'll get my wrench in there and loosen these bolts up for the fuel filter housing. It's a 13 millimeter. Hopefully. Ugh. They're tight! Oh my god, I may or may not have put those in with an electric ratchet last time. I just went and got one of my longer, more leverage wrenches. I want to avoid taking that back pressure valve out because depending on where you are in the country and how clean your truck is, that can open a whole can of worms you don't want to deal with. If you're really rusty, those can be seized, twist, break the line. So I'll hope these instructions are accurate and we can just loosen these a little bit to get that swing in the housing. To take that out. And if you've done your exhaust back pressure valve on a rusty truck, I salute you. Been there before. definitely can be a pain in the butt. And that little metal line that comes from the front of the manifold. Luckily this is my baby, she's from California, and all of the bolts are nice to me. I'm probably gonna park this thing for the winter to keep it out of the salt. And find a $1,500 beater and really beat it in the snow. So loosen those bolts up. So now that those bolts are loose, I'm able to move the filter housing a little bit and the return line just enough. Still struggle a little bit, but also to get it started, fudge. There we go. Got that new sleeve in there. Now I can tighten that line back down. And I can tighten those housing bolts back to the front. Now with this fuel here, you're supposed to tighten that until the brass hits the housing. It's kind of how these work. They've used these for years. Worked on some Oliver tractors from the 70s on a farm I worked at, and they used the same setup. That's tight. All right. I'm going to put this loose, which might have a little more room. Tighten those torques. That one will go through there still. Okay. And that other one can kind of sneak in. Got a potty mouth. All right. Come on. Tighten those down. So if you see, kind of wedge that inlet line to get that extension behind it. These aren't the easiest to get to. Once I get that wedged a little bit, I can tighten that. I'm gonna bring the housing back in before I do that. So, tighten your housing bolts. I got the housing bolts back in. Now I'm gonna try and pry that line back a little bit. Just the gravity of the pry bar. Get that back. Well, I don't know if gravity's on my side. Sir Isaac Newton has failed me. That way I can get that Torx in there. If you got an extended Torx, it might work better than what I've got. tighten that down. And that one I can get to right there. We are golden. All right, block installed. Now, what I think is gonna be the hard part is getting to those damn plugs, but we'll be all right. So our next step is to remove the plug that's down there. Okay. So they highly recommend, and from everything I've read, a 5/16 pipe plug socket made specifically for this is going to be your best bet. I am hoping to get down there with an extension and a swivel and get that on there. If not, they said the instructions say you can use an adjustable wrench or vice grips, which to me just seems like a nightmare. If you have one of these sockets, good. If not, 5/16. I've seen them on Amazon. I'm borrowing this one from a friend right now. He doesn't know that though. So here's the magic ticket. 5/16 pipe socket, the swivel, and an extension. It's able to get me down there just barely. I just had to try a couple different combos. It's onto that pipe plug to spin it out. If it's even spinning, it's definitely spinning. Holy smokes. Just real quick, to show you the kind of clearance in there, even with that setup. It's up against that housing, but I'm able to just barely spin it. There we go. It's out. Now I gotta get a magnet and fish that guy down. Out of there. Now that that's out, I get to grab one of these fittings out of here. And then I'm going to put the pipe sealant that the kit came with from here onto the threads here and get that piece down in there somehow and tightened. I've not thought about this yet. We'll get that pipe thread sealant on here. Gross. I like to make sure it's in every single thread because I do not want an issue. Okay, now I need to get that in. My hands are too big, so I'm gonna have to think about this. So the goal is to use this mechanic's pick, get it down in, turn it into the hole, and then hand thread it. And I'm going to use this semi-shallow socket, hopefully, to get on it. If not, then I'll use the wrench. So here we go. All right. And I dropped it. Magnet. Alright, make sure you didn't put dirt in that. Take two. Pick with my finger on it. Okay. There it is. It's the wrong angle, but it's at the right spot. Take the pick out. Uh-oh. Now what? Kind of put the pick back in. Okay, so I've got it lined up at the start of the threads. I just can't get my hand in there. So, I shall try to spin it Ooh. I think we started it. Oh my god. Yeah, I'm just using in between my pointer and middle finger to turn it little by little. Start the threads, and I got it in the end of the pick. Golly. Now let's see if this shallow socket can get in there. Here, I'll show you real quick. Got it started there, but you can see my hand just barely fits in there. But I can kind of spin it by doing this. Let's see. So I'm gonna try this. What is it? 13 millimeter. Semi-shallow, but here's the kind of clearance there is. See, I can't even get that on there because of H-pop housing. So I'm gonna get a same wrench I used to take out those bowl thingamabobbers, bowl bolts. Some ratcheting. Forgive me, I need a cameraman or woman, a girlfriend. I'm gonna just turn it in little by little right now. One of those twist and spin kind of deals. If you didn't disconnect your batteries, it's never a bad idea. Your relays are right there. The power to them is the rubber under the rubber caps, but be careful. All right, so repeat 83 frickin' times, and then you'll have this tight. Unreal. So I'll tighten that, and then I'll show you how that hose goes on next. So also another difficult part is getting this in. So looks like it's not going to clear, but the truth is I have to get it on there just over the fitting, and then I can hit it with a wrench. Again, I wish I had a camera person here to hold this, but I'm going to hold it with my left hand there and then use a 9/16 wrench and get that started on the threads. All right. Now that I got it started, I still have to have it loose, but I was able to swivel that down in between the two relays here. Wanted to make sure it clears these somewhat. They say it's abrasion resistant. I might loosen that, move it back so it's a little out of the way and not rubbing anything, just to be on the safe side. So that's how you get that started, and then you find where you want it and then tighten it down the rest of the way. So that's in there, that's tight, it's clear, it's running up between those relays. Swung that wire back, loosen the nut, move the wire back a little bit, now it's not rubbing. So that just goes up and in front and back to there. Riff Raff. So the next step is to get to the plug on the back of the head, which is behind the turbo. So I got to take the intake out. I've got this swivel extension, long extension. Maybe I'm a diva with this, but you can definitely get it with a flathead screwdriver. So I gotta get to this clamp. See, flathead would have been done already. Diva. Eva. So I got those clamps loose, get my boost hose off here. Swing that. Be careful with yours. This one's, I've replaced this. When they're older, they can be dry and cracked. I'm trying to get this green one out. Okay, maybe not. I think I'm gonna have to take this guy off too. Son of a bee sting. Not my favorite task. Who am I kidding? I drive a truck with 305,000 miles on it. I love doing this stuff. Okay. So yeah, take your intake out. Since I'm going this far, might as well just do them both. Double fist them. Man. I had the doghouse mod. Well, I don't have it on, but I have it available. I just haven't done it. I probably should just do it right now while I'm in here, but I don't want to. Where'd that 10mm go? True story of every mechanic's life. Here it is. So that's there. Oh yeah. Be a mechanic, they said. On. Oh my gosh. So this is my fault. I put these bolts in because I don't know, when I bought this, the factory ones weren't there. So I got some nice flanged head bolts to put in here, which maybe a ½ inch longer than they needed to be. Jesus. There we go. All right, other bolts out. I always forget about the damn rubber hose down there. I just pop off. Yeah, just pops off. Oh, what else is attached to this? Off the turbo. Get out. There you go. Take that whole thing out. So by taking that intake out, that'll give you access to down there where your other plug is, behind there. They say on 99s you might have to grind a little bit of the exhaust to get this in. I've got the bellowed up pipe, so that helps. So I'm gonna get to that plug. Where's my finger? Back there. It's below that bolt head. Okay. Now I'm gonna get back in there with that 5/16 socket and hopefully get on that. Trying to get light in there. If you see any glare off my dome piece, I apologize in advance. Sweet. Hopefully I broke that loose enough to... No, of course not. All right. So this is what you're up against when you're doing this. Just an FYI. So what happened there was my fancy ratchet had too big of a head, so I couldn't clear it. I got a smaller ratchet with the 5/16 pipe socket, and then I was able to get in there and get the plug out the rest of the way. It fell on the ground, so at this point I'm getting the next fitting. I'm going to put the sealant on it and get that one started in there and tightened in. I'm gonna lay back in there and hopefully reach by hand and get this fitting started. Oh. Patience is key. Found the threads, starting by hand. Now I can switch to my little ratchet. Blessed with long arms. No T-Rex here. Okay, that's nice and tight. Pipe thread. Now I gotta run the long line underneath my intake pipe here, clearing other things. They warn, make sure you keep it clear of wiring harnesses. Because of the abrasion resistant coating on it, it can actually wear through those. You don't want that. Looks like I'm going under the doghouse here first. Two hands, one to flex it where I need it. Bruises on my chest. All right, fantastic. Nope, should go in there with my wrench. Need leverage. 9/16. Well, that's not 9/16. There it is. We're going in. I'm sure they recommend line wrenches for this, but sometimes you just can't do it with a line wrench. I'm not even getting started, so this is gonna be a bit. Nope, I can't hug the turbo. Ow, hit me in the eye. Right in the eye. I'm just trying to get the thread started on that damn thing. Come on. Come on. Come on, Shelly. Nope, that's crooked. go. Funky old girl. Yep. So now you know, compared to the other video you might have found, what actually goes into this. Okay, so that's in, that's tight. You can see how we got the fitting going up like that. Then I'm gonna route it down under the doghouse there, under the pipe, intake pipe there. And now I'll put my intake back in. So I've got the intake back in. I closed the fuel bowl drain. Now I'm gonna cycle the key. Oh, you hear the fuel pump. So I'm going to cycle the key a couple times. Let that build pressure up. And it's still pumping. It stopped. So I'll turn the key back off. Back on. Thought I heard a leak, but it was just some plastic blowing. So let that pump cycle. Should probably go get fuel too. One more time. Put her in neutral. Press the clutch and fire it up. So now I'm going to check for some little fuel leaks on all the fittings while it's running, and be careful of the belt and everything. I'll shine my light in there. Go for a test drive. ground, I noticed a difference. It has fuel where it did not before. So where it would start to fall flat on its face, it's still accelerating. Mind you, I also have an upgraded turbo wheel. It's a knockoff Wicked wheel from China, and it does affect the boost and the fuel reading. So it spools around 1200, which is magical in this engine. So I'm going to do a little more driving and my long road trip, and give another review after that to see how this feels on the highway. Because I hear a lot about this making the engine quieter while on the highway and coasting, which is pretty damn cool. Right now, I like it. Miles per gallon. So it really is a noticeable difference in noise at RPMs, and it just coasts a lot more quiet. Currently going around 60, just cruising here, and I notice a significant difference in noise while driving. Acceleration, it's a big difference. I'm not starving for fuel anymore. It's able to get the fuel right away. And just even on decel, I notice it's quieter, and acceleration, the power is there. This is, to me, like one of those things, like how did Ford, with their millions of dollars of engineering, miss something as simple as making it a return loop system for the efficiency that comes out of this. I am really amazed at how much of a difference this modification makes with the with that XFR or FXR. You know, the whole thing I've been talking about. But much quieter, just coasting 55. Overall, honest review on this, totally worth it. Feels like one of those things you wish that Ford or International caught up on when they were designing the engine in the first place. I drove from New Jersey to Ohio 400 miles with a trailer, dropped off the trailer, turned around, came back, and just so much quieter on the highway. Apologize the video was so long, just wanted to give a thorough install of the things you might run into, and I hope you like and subscribe and keep watching videos, keep commenting. If you see something that we could have done differently or someone else could do differently to make this easier, please comment. You know, read the comments. If you want to share this on forums, feel free to, so everyone can get a little benefit from this. But no, just overall, I was really pleased with the fuel crossover kit, and I would highly recommend it to anyone who wants a little better performance out of their truck or needs a little more fuel. With a programmer on stock injectors, made a big difference boosting that fuel pressure, and then my acceleration just kept going, and I had that power around 2500 to 3000, which is where I was losing power before. So overall, great product, totally recommend it. Thanks for watching.